a hard fought game. We came, we saw, we got done. It was pretty trash. I mean, everybody said what they said. They just came out there and balled the hell out against the Texans. The Texans went into MetLife Stadium thinking that we were going to change the tides. King Green came out the gate. He tried his best, but he was getting whooped. The Texans O line gave up 7 sacks, 7 to 8 sacks, I think, towards the end of the game. That was pretty trash for the Texans. They went into MetLife Stadium. So starting in the first half, the both the Texans and the Jets started off pretty slow. I mean, the Jets come out with a lot of run, run. I mean, a lot of pass, excuse me, and then went with a punt. Then the Texans came out, went through 2 incomplete passes, and yeah, it was just a bad first series. The Texans started to get something in the second half, and Tunsil came out, and he was having a far starter as well. The Texans' offensive line this game stunk it up, but it seemed like it was a slight improvement, but not in the stats. Let me slow it down a little bit. How do you guys feel about the Texans? My name is Lance Hayes. It's Sports Social Live. The Texans take a loss to the Jets. It was a crushing loss to me because it looked like the Texans just gave up towards the end of the game. Going into this game, I had the Jets kind of taking the L to the Texans, to be quite honest. I thought the Jets would come out and be a little bit sluggish. I thought the Texans would come out and stay consistent. And yeah, Brandon, definite. I think Slowick, he didn't call a bad game, but he definitely didn't call the best game for me. I think Slowick called the best that he could with the personnel that he had this game. The Texans' offensive line looked decent because they were able to get on the second level. They ran some quick run zone schemes, allowed Joe Mixon to hit the backside gaps and then go for a little bit more. Of course, that's Mixon being what he is, a solid stud veteran running back. He was balling out. The offensive line did decent when Green came out the game. And let's just break this up. If you're on Twitter or X, if somebody gets hurt, no matter how poorly they're doing, we do not have to talk trash or talk bad about that person. I get it. Green was not doing well, but I did not like what I saw from Texans fans applauding a man getting hurt. That doesn't make sense. It's not good for the Texans, not good for anybody. But Slowick definitely came out. I mean, I think he called decent plays for his personnel. I'm okay with what Slowick called, but he just didn't make the plays. The Texans just didn't they didn't put it together at all. Jets made the plays, and you saw the Jets make the plays down the line. You saw a veteran leadership. You saw studs, Devontae Adams getting active. You saw amazing catches. You saw them overcome their miscues. The Jets were better today, of course, and the Texans come out slow, sluggish, and just not looking good. The only person who looked like he was up to par was Mixon, and second, you had the Texans' defensive line. The linebackers were flying around. Will Anderson Jr. flying around. So as the Texans come out this game, I was a little bit mad at what we were able to do down the stretch. The second halves for the Texans have been terrible, to say the least. They have to figure out what's going on in the second half. I wasn't mad at that. So going into about the second or third series, you saw the Texans kind of just stifling the Jets. I mean, you had Brees Hall run. He almost fumbled. Will Anderson got hurt on that play. Then the Texans come out tackling, and you have 2 incomplete passes by the Jets. Jets punted off. Then Mixon came out mixing. He had a big 7-yard run. Then he came out with another big run that was called back from holding, and a 2nd and 11 from with a sack. And Kenyon Green was getting whooped at this point. I did not like how Kenyon Green was playing at this point. So then Tank Dell gets a quick third down pass, but we still fall short and we have to punt. Going to that, I mean, then the Jets get the ball back, and this is when you see Hall get active. Hall has a big game, 2 big games back to back, and then Henry Tua. I liked how he played this game against this solid Jets offense. The Jets have key players in the game at every position, and but Henry Tua had a good solid game back for the Texans. He had a tackle for a loss there. Then a 3rd-yard pass, a tackle by Lassiter, and then the Jets had an amazing touchdown run that was fumbled at the goal line, and it ended up being a Texans touchback and the Texans get the ball back. That was nice. When the Texans get the ball back, you see them working down the stretch, Mixon with the 2 yard run. Stroud even gets active, then the incomplete pass. And then we have the Jets get the ball back again. And it just Jets, Texans. But we get something started in a couple of series when Mixon gets active. He's jump cutting Mixon. I need to figure out jumping Joe because Mixon is able to get the ball at the line and find the backside gaps for the Texans. And I like how Mixon is running the ball. And that's the only bright side, the only positive of this game was Joe Mixon in his individual efforts. Yes, you saw Kendrick Green come in for Kenyon Green and be successful, but I was not happy with anybody else's effort on the offensive side of the ball, including CJ. But Mixon balled the hell out. In this drive, he had great big runs, breaking tackles. But then you see the Jets kind of start stifling him in the backfield because they were working the line. Stroud threw an incomplete pass. They threw a big first down catch to Tank Dell. It was great to see a Tank Dell sighting. And then Mixon with the phenomenal touchdown run. Shout out to Mixon, man. I like what Mixon was doing this whole drive. And that was something good to see for the Texans. The Texans balled out and got on that board. And it was great to see. Then Adams comes in, he gets running, and the Texans stop the Jets with a punt, and then Fairbairn wide, kind of going into the half. It was a boring first half. What do y'all think about the first half of football? I knew this game would be kind of boring, the Texans versus the Jets. It just would be kind of boring, but this was a dud of a first half. The Texans go into the second half. It was 7-0, the Texans, and I did not like anything that the Texans were doing. It should have been 7-7, but Fairbairn missing that field goal was extremely uncharacteristic for me. I did not like Fairbairn. He had 2 missed field goals on the day. It's very uncharacteristic, but that first half long field goal, it was okay. The second half was crazy. It was a kind of like he was iced in the second half. But let's just aside from the breakdown, I saw CJ out here in this game. He under the big lights. CJ kind of didn't impress me today. I was not happy with CJ while he was on his back foot a lot and having to move out of the way. You see, CJ had a couple of miscues and missed throws. I did not like what he was doing down the field. Sometimes when he was extending the plays, and I talked about this when Jeremy was online, when CJ Stroud extends plays, sometimes that's the reason why we're getting sacks. I mean, at the end of this game, you can see him trying to extend the plays. You even where a vet savvy quarterback kind of would have got out the pocket and scooted for a little bit more. CJ did run the ball and pull it down a little bit, but I definitely wanted to see more from CJ. And as it comes to the rushing game, excuse me, and him just pulling the ball down a little bit more. Drop something in the chat. Let me know how you feel about this game today. This is Sports Social Live. Subscribe, like, share. Speaking of CJ being rushed out of the pocket, how are you guys feeling about the Texans offensive line? I know they suck. But just tell me how you feel. Drop your favorite emoji for how the Texans feel, how you feel about the Texans offensive line. If I don't see a lot of trash cans in the comments, then I know you're not watching the same game I'm watching. The Texans offensive line played like trash, but today I will give them some more tenacity. Laramie Tunsil's an overpaid left tackle. I do not know how he is paid so well, but he's overpaid. I give him his credit, though. He's able to have the tenacity and grit. And you saw when Ken Green went out, Kendrick Green had a lot of tenacity and grit. And although he was playing against some studs, he made plays. He was pulling. He showed he wanted to be in the game. It was great to see him come in and just be somewhat of a formidable person against this great Jets defensive line. The Jets defensive line has Hassan Reddick and you have Quinnen Williams balling. They are causing havoc, wreaking havoc every play. And one positive note, a negative note for the Texans, and you seen something that happened with the Jets. The Jets were able to get their linebackers pumping and jumping this game, and the Texans did not know what to do when it came into the pass game. The Jets were able to disguise coverage against the Texans, and CJ had a difficult time getting to the receivers. I can say the receivers had a hard time getting separation. Tank Dell was not able to get the separation that you would need from a star receiver or one or two receiver. If you feel like Tank Dell got off a little bit, then there goes Sauce. Sauce was right there with the long arms. I wanted to see a little bit more from the Texans when it came down to the tight ends. You saw them get slightly active in this game. Schultz with some catches. You had Stover with some work in the game, but I just wanted to see more from the Texans tight ends. We finished the game. Tank had a pretty big game today. He had 6 catches for 126 yards, and then a steep drop off down to Robert Woods, 2 catches for 44, and then Dalton Schultz was 3 catches for 21 yards, and that was it. Those are all the catches that had occurred this game. CJ almost got in the box on that one gadget play, the Wildcat play with CJ going into the end zone. But other than that, the Texans passing game was pretty inefficient. CJ went 11 for 30 and 191 yards. That's a pretty bad game for CJ. And a lot of that was due to the offensive line and those 7 sacks that they gave up. But it wasn't good to see him miscuing and misthrowing for the receivers. The second half of football, I think the Jets just came out in the second half and they were focused. Texans only scored 6 points in the second half, and that was pretty terrible on them. They could not get anything started. You think they can get the run started, and just when they did, Hassan Reddick and Quinnen Williams and that Jets front seven just powered up, and Texans were non-existent in the second half. CJ couldn't do it, nor could Mixon. The Texans defense, however, they were on the field a lot. You can't do much when you're on the field a lot. It's hard to stop Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Williams, and somebody who's going to make a phenomenal touchdown catch. Like you can't. Garrett Wilson with 2 touchdown catches, 9 receptions for 90 yards. Solid play from Garrett Wilson, excuse me, on the day from the Jets. It was just a tough day for the Texans, man. I think I'm mad at the game. I knew that the Jets had all these pieces, and it seems like they're able to put these pieces together to be successful. So they put them together on the Texans. Now the Texans roll into a bye week and have to get ready for another primetime game against one of the best teams in the league. I think, if not the best, one of the best for sure, top 3 in the Detroit Lions. It's going to be a difficult task for the Texans defense, but luckily in the next game, the Texans defense will get linebacker Azeez Al-Shire back, and you might get Jimmy Ward back at safety. But Jimmy Ward's growing is always messed up, so we'll see how long we have him in that Lions game. I also believe that the Texans should be getting Nico Collins back. So you'll get Nico Collins back. Maybe you get Damian Pierce back against the Lions from injury. So our kick return, backup running back will be back. Then you get Jordan Patterson back, and then you get a couple of other people back. So the Texans should be looking a little bit better going into the Lions game than this game that they just laid a kind of a second half L. Even Fairbairn was cold today, and that's normally something that does not happen against with Fairbairn, who is the Texans' leading scorer in history. I want to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts with this game? How do you feel that the Texans perform? I think they performed how they have been performing. The Texans didn't surprise me this game with how they've been performing today. This is on par with what's been going on. The offensive line giving up sacks, inconsistencies in the offensive plays. Defense swarmed. They did good. I mean, it was 2 big plays from the Jets. I say 3 big plays from the Jets kind of took the defense out of the game. But you can't be mad at a defense for going into the game and holding the team to 21 points. You cannot be mad at the defense. They shut them out the first half, then the Jets come and score 2 in the fourth quarter, but 2 hard fought long drives from the Jets. So you cannot be mad at what the defense did today. Offense just has to sustain drives and score. Bobby Slowick, what can you do better? I'm not impressed with Bobby Slowick thus far. When he does get the offensive line improved, he's not able to go into this game and be successful. I mean, he lays an egg on some play calling, but if it's not one thing, another from Bobby Slowick. So what do you guys say? How can the Texans fix what's going on? Obviously, a lot of this is on the offensive side of the ball. How can they sustain drives and improve going into second halves? I mean, this is the probably the sixth game where they come into the second half and just falling off the tracks. I mean, to the point where they're calling gadget plays, and it just not good, not a good look offensively for the Texans. You're down two of your best receivers, and now your offensive line, you're down a left guard. I don't even think he was a starting left guard anymore because you could say Patterson was a starting left guard. How do you vision the Texans improve from here? Drop it in there. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about the Texans versus Jets and how the Texans can improve, but I like talking about the Texans. Again, I'm Lance Hayes of Sports Social Live, the number one Texans global fan. I'm gonna stream from all over the world. We're streaming live from Japan today. So tell me how you feel about this Texans game. Did they just play how they've been playing, or did they suck even more than they've been sucking? I think they suck. They just didn't look good on offense. Defense, I'm okay with the defensive effort. That's fine. Um, they can keep up with teams. That Jets team has some high powering the offensive players, but offensively, that was a piss poor performance from the Texans. CJ is included. CJ is not above anything that the Texans do. So tell me how you feel about the game. The Texans lose to the Jets 21-13. How do you feel about the coaching? So when I look at the Texans and what happened, the coaching of this game was what it's been, right? We on the offensive side of the ball, you had to question some of the plays that Slowick was calling. It seemed like he went away from the run. That's one thing I have an issue with. He called a better game for the people, but I wasn't impressed, right? It was better. The reason I say he called a better game is because he at least got on the quick zone plays and allowed the linemen to at least have an effort to get up to the second level. But in all, it was not a good game for Bobby Slowick. The sacks, you're mad, you can get mad at the sacks, but that's not Bobby. Bobby's not on the field, right? So let's just talk about it. Bobby Slowick, how do you feel Bobby Slowick coached today? Do you feel like Bobby Slowick called a good game? I don't think he called a good game in the second half, but his first half approach was solid. It got us down the field. It just, we do not have an offensive line for that. I'm sure Nick needs to be on the phone with someone now more than ever to get some type of interior offensive lineman that is worth $1 into the Texans. Nick has to do something. Who's he going to pick up with this trade deadline? Or are they going to do the we're down, we're good for our players? Being a player's coach can be to your detriment. And I think that's what's going on with the team. And Bobby Slowick probably needs to be adamant that they need to improve the talent for the team. I think Bobby Slowick is getting figured out in the second half by every coach that he plays. He runs his plays, and I don't know if they're reading his play calling, what they're doing, but Bobby Slowick is getting figured out every second half. Every second half. It's really disappointing because you go into there with some type of running stride, Mixon giving all the effort, then Bobby Slowick wants to get fancy and pull guards and pull the tackle from across the field, use a guard to pull and to kick out a block. I don't think that's necessary in this zone running scheme. Use the zone, put a hat on the hat, let Mixon get up to the second level and use his skill. That's the only plus and positive sign that the Texans have. So if I'm looking at it from an outside perspective, but I have a bias, I'm a Texans fan, Bobby Slowick has to call plays for his personnel, and he has to do better. He called a better game the first half. That was solid first half. I'm okay. Yes, that we didn't score every drive, but you saw a little bit more consistency in the run game, Mixon doing what he did, and he wasn't getting tackled in the backfield. But it was what we needed: the quick zones, utilizing his personnel hat on hat. The tight ends in this game were being utilized when we got a little drives going. But this game, you didn't see the tight ends being utilized like that towards the end of the second half. They tried, it just wasn't effective. The tight ends also were brought in to block a little bit more, and the blocking from the tight ends has to improve, man. I think the tight ends kind of just laid an egg in the second half as far as blocking. You see them they didn't even get chips on rushers that are lined up directly in front of them. That's something that the tight ends could do better. Um, Speaking of that, of blocking, Laramie Tunsil, to go back to the offensive line, Laramie Tunsil did not help out these tight ends either, because I saw one play where Schultz calls, "Hey, we got a rusher." Laramie Tunsil just seemed like he was a little bit slower and didn't even get a help right there. So Bobby Slowick, he's under the radar for me. I don't think he's coaching to his personnel. I don't think he's coaching, helping them out or giving them a fair shake. I just need him to do better as far as that's concerned. But I got to take my hats off to a couple of people in the game. I got to give some kudos, right? You got to give kudos where it counts. You got to give kudos to the defensive players. The defense was able to step up. The linebackers were able to step up and fill gaps early. So that's going to be like my kudo. Will Anderson gets a kudo for playing through injury. They were flying around. I mean, I think that Aaron Rodgers is a vet. He is what we think he is. Aaron Rodgers even ran a little bit more athletic than CJ Stroud on that one run. So you got to give kudos. The defense had a tough matchup against this athletic Jets team. So that's going to be probably like my only kudo this game, and D'Amico for calling a solid defense. I'm not mad at the long play catch touchdown from Wilson where he grabs with one hand and his shin comes down. Lassiter was in position. It was just an amazing catch. I'm not mad at some of these runs that get popped. The receivers are running backs are going to pop runs. So the defense was in solid places to make plays. I'm not mad at it. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments, concerns about the Texans? If you're a real fan, you're concerned because you don't see the improvement that's needed to be a AFC contending team. You don't see the offensive line needed to see as a team. Positives are minimal. So the Texans lose to the Jets. The Texans lose to the Jets 21-13. My name is Lance Hayes at Sports Social Live. Do me a favor, follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to our Twitter. It's Lance Hayes, Sports Social Live. Just some quick a quick recap of this game. I hate it. The Texans lost, but I'm going to be at this Lions game, and then we're going to backdoor with the Cowboys win. Salute.